And good morning. It's nice to see everyone on this beautiful autumn day. I built a fire in the parlor when I came in this morning, in the fireplace, and also turned on our new heat pumps in the coffee room in the parlor. So if you get chilled during the service, please feel free. Our warming station will be in the parlor, in the coffee room, and you can also fill up your tea or your coffee while we're thinking this may be the last Sunday in the sanctuary before we make our exodus transfer back to the parlor for fall and winter. So, this is Indigenous Peoples Day weekend, and we are honoring First Peoples in our area, home to the Micmac and Maliseet tribes in our service this morning. I'd like to welcome Isaac St. John, Tribal Historic Preservation Officer of the Holt and Maliseet Indians, who will be delivering the lecture today. And I'll tell you more about Isaac. Take a look at that. You guys are here today. Our prelude this morning is a Native American flute that Carlos Nakai, representing the Western First Peoples tradition, is titled Walking the Shining Earth. In our moment of centering silence, let us be mindful and alert to the here and now. Let us sit calmly, breathe, and listen to the sound of the singing bowl. we light the chalice today to remind us to live in harmony with our environment, and to live in a manner that benefits all those who are around us. We live in the light, and we live in love. The First Church of Houlton was organized and met for the first time on October 10th, 1811, in Joseph Houlton's parlor, as the story goes. And Dale pointed out to me that on the old First Congregational Church sign, it had that date, October 10, organized on it. They also met earlier than Congregationalists and Unitarians do these days. They met at 9:30 a.m. So oftentimes, this first Sunday closest to October 10 was always recognized in the Congregational Church as kind of the beginning of the church year, where with Unitarians, the in-gathering service has kind of become our opening part of the church year. But technically and historically, October 10 would be that date. The reading of a land acknowledgement has become a common practice in UU churches in the state of Maine in recent years. This has also become a common practice in churches in the neighboring province of New Brunswick, Woodstock included. But we have never read a land acknowledgement here at Unitarian Universalist Church of Houlton. This is about to change. You are about to witness the first reading of such a statement here at First Church of Houlton today. This land acknowledgement that you see in your bulletin was crafted by Zeke Crofton McDonald, tribal ambassador of the Maliseet tribe in Houlton, and retired educator Christy Fitzpatrick, who was a member at the Church of Good Shepherd in Houlton. They currently use this statement at Church of the Good Shepherd Episcopal here in Houlton. So I'd like to invite Mary Alice to come forward to the mic and do our initial reading here in Houlton of a land acknowledgement. And I appreciate Mary Alice doing this. The pronunciation and background can be tricky.
Well, good morning. And I didn't know when last night I got this email from David that this was going to be the first time that we are all sharing together a land acknowledgement. And please forgive any of my mispronunciations. This land acknowledgement I give with open heart and a great intention to help us remember and honor this land that we are on and the peoples that have been here for thousands of years. The Unitarian Universalist Church of Houlton Land Acknowledgement. The Unitarian Universal Church in Houlton, Maine, respectfully acknowledges that our building is located on the homeland of the Wolastoqua Nation. The Wolastoqua Nation is connected to other Wabanaki nations, the Passamaquoddy, Penobscot, the Muckback, through kinship, alliances, and diplomacy. We reside today near the Wolastoqua village of Madusknuuwiak, alongside the bank of the Muskogee River, a tributary of the Wolastoq. the St. John as we know it, which is the cultural heart of the Willis-Tequai people. We acknowledge the unresolved issues of water and territorial rights, rights to adequate sustenance and food sovereignty, control and care for the ecosystem, and the encroachment upon sacred sites that occur on these lands. We further recognize that these nations are distinct, sovereign, legal, and political entities with their own power of self-governance and self-determination, living on unsurrendered and unceded traditional lands.
Thank you, Mary Alice. A significant day here in Holt First Church. Appreciate your presence here for this service. Let us rise and sing hymn number 303 in our hymnals. You may recognize the tune. The Unitarians have changed the words. We are the earth upright and proud. So this morning, in setting up Isaac's talk, I thought it might be helpful to show some visuals or images of some things that he's going to be talking about. One of them being the recent river restoration project of the Maliseet River. So this is going to be a fast slideshow, just wanted to give you a feel for some of the work that's being done. The objective of the project is to enhance the fish habitat by restoring it to conditions found prior to the log driving days of the 19th and 20th century. This is accomplished by constructing obstructions in the river using timber and large boulders, which provide shelter for spawning fish and protection from predators. The North Branch supports native brook trout, brown trout, and at one time Atlantic salmon. The long-range goal of the project is restoration of the Atlantic salmon population, a species of cultural and economic importance of the Maliseet tribe. So this work has been going on directly in front of our property in Monticello, and I've included some information on the Backwoods blog recently. But these are just a few of the images. The water's been very low this time of year, so the excavation equipment can work easily in the riverbed. And in the distance, you'll see the excavator. So what strikes me is how odd it seems to see such large equipment in the river in front of our cabin and property. This is one of the vehicles that was purchased by the contractor to do his work on the North Branch. And this is an aerial view where you can see some of the obstructions, the large boulders that have been placed in the stream. Get a little closer. This would be just downstream from us, closer to Russell Rock. So you can see how low the water is in places. And this would be one of the large rocks that's embedded deeply into the natural riverbed and provides this shelter. You'll see one of the larger rock boulders we're zooming in on. And this is the side angle. You can see how they've been constructed. And the tree roots, again, are driven into the bed of a river to provide shelter for the trout. And this is a shot just last week as the trees were turning. And this is a quick drone shot going downstream towards Russell Rock. And you can see some of the obstructions and the logs that have been added. Mentioned during Council Joy's concern about the hurricane relief. What we're doing in the month of October is earmarking the Pishka collection here for two different projects. Today, all the monies from the Pishka are going to go into the Maliseet Food Bank for local social action here in town. And the following 2 Sundays in October are going to be UUA Hurricane Relief Project, which you'll see more information about that we can give directly to UU churches and members who were affected by the hurricane coming up the East Coast during this past month. The music for today's offertory comes from Young Holt Unlimited. It was one of their hits back in 1968, Soulful Strut. So if Matt, if you will assist with the offering today. Let's give it a time.
I love my wallet.
Battery change. Sorry about now, dying. But I'm back, full power. Okay, for a quick introduction, Isaac. Today's lecture is titled A Tale of Two Worldviews. Isaac's going to discuss the difference between Indigenous and Western worldviews of the environment and self. From how we see ourselves appearing in nature to how we interact with that same natural world. How do people in both spheres rectify that difference in understanding? But this talk discussion hopes to shed some light on this problem by using the concept of two-eyed seeing to show how it is possible for Native researchers to rectify these two spheres as well as actions being taken to help with mitigation of climate change within the tribe using this concept. So I heard this lecture a couple of weeks ago at Church of the Good Shepherd that Isaac delivered. And at that point I said, oh, we need to invite him here for Indigenous Peoples Day weekend to deliver the same talk and for some Q&A afterwards to interact with Isaac. He's an archaeologist as well as a cultural historian, and as well as just a great all-around guy. So Isaac, come forward. Let's give a loud round of appreciation.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm Isaac St. John, the Travel and Historic Preservation Officer for the Holt Band of Maliseet Indians. The name is incidental. My parents are, my dad's from New York, so the St. John isn't the same. I'm going to talk to you today about two-eyed sea, ecological work, and just a difference in understanding of the natural world between native viewpoints and Western viewpoints. Western viewpoints, I'm going to define a few things so we all know what we're talking about. Western viewpoints are based on European Judeo-Christian ideas of the self, creation, stuff like that, Adam and Eve and being made from God. And then indigenous viewpoints being made from, there's many different viewpoints, so it's hard to pinpoint one specific one, but for the Wabanaki and Wolastoqey, it's the idea of being born from the ash tree. Our cultural hero, Muskab, shot an arrow into an ash tree, and we pulled it out. Out came all the animals, everything else, and then humans. So there's just, I want to bring that up because there's a difference between the Western viewpoint of creation versus the Wabanaki viewpoint of creation, that the world is created for man versus we're all created for the world and not specifically for the world. But we are given the task of making sure that the world is healthy and the animals are healthy and the trees, everything is healthy for us to live and for the animals to live, the animals and plants and natural world. How do you rectify these two worldviews that are pretty starkly different? There's a process in academia called two-eyed seeing, which takes the Western lenses of the world and the indigenous lenses and puts them together so that you can tackle an issue that might not be solvable with one way of looking or might not be solvable with the other way of looking. So if you put them together, you can sort of figure out a better way to solve issues. And for example, the river restoration is a very apt example for what two-eyed seeing is being used for. The river itself is heavily modified. All the big boulders have been taken out. It's been flattened and widened for log drives. And so what this project is doing is adding those boulders back in to slow the river down and give fish habitat and make it so that it's not as hot in the summer and flows a little slower so that fish can actually live there. And David mentioned that there was at one point blank salmon in there. And that's, we're trying to get those back in there, but we're having trouble with the border because of different regulations on either side. So that's sort of another topic we have to tackle with the two-eyed seeing way of looking at things because of just how different each government is, government-to-government interactions on both sides of the border. If you look at these issues based on solely one lens, you don't get the full extent of what could be achieved. And so using both lenses, you get the understanding that it's not just one specific aspect of the environment that needs to be addressed to restore something or to keep something healthy. We have to look at all aspects of it. So again, for the river, it's not just putting in those boulders, it's having it so they're at specific areas, they're at different places, different amounts, different things to have the fish have a good flow of the river. And then that healthy river is going to emanate outwards towards, healthy land, healthy trees, healthy animals. And so it's not just the river that we're looking at, it's the river with land, tributaries, animals, people, and having those all together. So it's not, the Western view is to look at specifically that one problem, but the Indigenous view is to look at the whole system itself and what that's going to look like going forward and what it looks like going back. And looking at so this is our seal. This was our seal. I think it still is too. It just shows sort of the importance of the environment and nature. So on the top left, we have fiddlehead ferns, which, if you've ever had them, they're delicious. But we need a healthy river to be able to eat them. And if you don't have a healthy river, you can't come and pick. And that's a big form of sustenance for us and for people around here. Top right, we have sort of like a nature scene, sort of stylized nature scene. But there's also a teepee there. We use teepees. It just goes to show the importance of being able to be on the land. On the bottom left, we have a canoe, birch bark canoe, which you need good birch trees to be able to make a canoe, which is important for traveling up and down rivers and lakes and portaging. If you've ever portaged with a canoe, it's kind of hard if you have a big heavy canoe. So the birch bark definitely makes it a little easier to move in and out of the lakes and streams. And then we have the ash baskets on the bottom right. And as I said before, ash is very important to us because it's how we were created, and then we use it for baskets and whatever else we need. So if we don't have access to ash or birch or fiddleheads or the river, then it sort of means that our culture is not being practiced, and that's against what we want. Mentioning ash, there's a big issue coming up called the Emerald Ash Borer, which at the moment is just taking its course. There's no real way to stop it, and I think the idea of being able to stop it is more of a Western viewpoint versus the idea of having it come through and seeing what happens so that we can fix the after effects rather than trying to stop nature from doing whatever it does. So the ash borer is coming through. That's going to be eventual and inevitable. But what we do afterwards and how we protect it. So we have different programs going on. Seed collection for planting. We have saplings. We have all these other things. So that when it comes through, you can try to revitalize the trees and have usable trees for the future. Maybe not our future, but generations going forward. So that's my short little lecture. I wanted to say it's not just the river, it's not just the land, it's not just the animals, it's all of them together. And the River Restoration Project sort of shows that one part, but then also is emanating outwards. Because we're also going to put fish in there, more fish, like salmon, and have a healthy system rather than just a healthy river and healthy people. But otherwise, I'm open to questions.
Obviously, the rivers are very low. How can we get more rain? Besides fighting the forces that are causing global warming?
That's a good question. I'm not sure exactly. I think it's just the weather is going to be the weather, you know? Some winters it's cold and snowy, some it's just raining the entire time. Some summers, I remember my first summer back up here, the river was very low. It was in 2020, I believe. And we didn't know it was going to be that low. But the next year it was pretty high throughout the season, but it's just depending on global warming, honestly. We have wet winters and dry summers and sort of more extremes going forward. I guess we just have to tough it out as we can.
Have they stocked Maliseet Lake yet? They usually do it in October.
I'm not
Which
sure.
flows into the river.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. I think it's been,
Salmon sometimes.
yeah, we're
Like,
trying to figure out a way to reintroduce salmon in an ecologically healthy way, and so that they don't just go into Canada and die on the dams over there. And so we're trying to figure out how to do that so that we can have that fish sustainably be here, so we can harvest and not have to worry about, having to restock every year. And the biggest issue is just the border, having to get the regulation on both sides. So I'm not sure about the restocking.
it was always the state of Maine did.
Yeah. The state, we've been working with the state to be a little bit more easier to do that sort of stuff, but then the issue is downstream, it's dammed up by Canadian dams. And so we're trying to get that working relationship, and it's not going great.
How do you get some of your funding for this? And why aren't there more people doing this sort of thing to save our earth?
We get our funding through, I believe, the EPA, and through various other local environmental restoration agencies, sort of like a cost sharing thing. But to why there isn't more people doing this, I guess it just depends on how this is being done. So sometimes you get really excited about the visuals of restoration, but then there's also the background of needing to have ways to fund it, understanding of the impacts of putting these boulders in, because we don't know the long-term effects of what's going to happen with the river, and so people are doing that research, and there's a lot more people out there doing this stuff than what it shows, and we just see the crews and whatnot. And in terms of restoration in general, it's more piece-wise, so it's not just the river, it's also wetlands, it's also forest, it's all the other parts as well. So we get to see the river, but we also don't see the people out and their hip waders doing wetlands.
Is the University of Maine involved in any of these efforts?
Not to my knowledge. I think it depends. It depends on where. So the university down no, but the university up in Prescott, yes. We've done some work with them to do sort of understanding of what the impacts would be, environmental, ecological. But then it's it's hard to really quantify where the help is. But there is some work being done with the university.
Is the salmon that you're thinking about reintroducing, is that called landlocked salmon?
No, it's going to be Atlantic salmon.
Is-
Atlantic salmon, yeah.
Okay, because I know there are salmon farms out in the ocean,
Mm-hmm.
in the Chalice area,
Mhm.
and I just wondered whether there's any relationship between the salmon and the rivers and that.
So those ones are essentially the same salmon, but their diet and how they're raised are very different. They're sort of fed.
Yeah, they are fed.
Yeah, they're fed by certain different nutrients and stuff like that are found in, or they are found in that sort of concentration in nature. The salmon that we're thinking about reintroducing are actually bred by, I don't remember the name of the club. It's a Atlantic Salmon Club up in Ashland. So the head is, if you know Dave Houlton, he's an archaeologist up at the university in Presque Isle. But they're breeding salmon that are genetically not related, but specifically from the river itself. So they take eggs that are from this watershed so that it's not a shock to them once they get reintroduced and are being raised in tanks and being fed whatever they need in nature so that they can be reintroduced into the river and not have it sort of like genetic mutants out there.
Are they similar to birds in that they know just genetically how to
Yep.
return to their
Mhm.
waterways?
Yeah, and then the biggest issue is just the man-made obstructions of dams and river destruction. So yeah, they're, once you put them in there, they know where to go and how to get up there and get back.
The Wolastoq River, I understand, has been a trade route with all its contributaries, and they found artifacts up to like 8,000 years old. Is that? And I was involved with some people at Presque Isle, and were sworn to secrecy where some of them are. And I think this is fantastic to see that this has been populated by native people for the native nations for a very, very long time, much longer than had been expected.
Mm-hmm.
Or
So that in and of itself is another good example of the two-eyed seeing. So you have the Western understanding of time and population. So the idea is that once the glaciers, sorry, once the glaciers moved out 12,000 years ago, people started moving in, and that's the scientific version of the population of the populating of Maine. But then we have the indigenous understanding of the populating of the area, is that we were here since time immemorial, and we were created from the ash tree, and we've been here ever since we could remember, is essentially the idea. So there's no set date, but it's a long time versus there's a set date, but it's also a long time. And you can use either or. I use either or depending on how I'm feeling.
Just an observation of both creation stories, the animals were here first.
Yeah. Yeah. So the animals were here, came out of the tree first for us. And then once we came out, we were told how to better keep the land for the animals and the animals for us. So we were given the quality of being on the same level as the animals versus we were here and then animals are for us. It's interesting.
It's like the concept of don't pick all the sweet grass, only pick so much so that the sweet grass can grow again.
Yep. And for fiddleheads, if anybody's ever picked fiddleheads, you leave the first one and the last one when you're picking them. So you can take whatever else is there, but leave the first one and the last one to grow up and spores and whatnot. So they're up more in the next year. They say it's the first one's for your grandmother and the second one's for your grandkids.
I'm from across, and I'm assuming that the Medexa cave over there would have been used for log driving as well, and that it would have been re-engineered for that. Okay, then I did not think about that, but it makes sense.
Yeah, it's surprising how many rivers have been re-engineered for log driving. They straightened them out, they widened them, they took out the boulders as best as they could. And that just created a very shallow, wide river that really nothing can live in. So hopefully these boulders will slow it down and shrink it down a little bit, but it's all over.
How do they get through the dams?
The logs or the fish?
No, the fish.
The fish? So they're trying to stay in the rivers themselves, but the salmon, some more recent ones have fish bladders built into them, which are somewhat effective, but it's not the same as just being able to go through. So there's built-in designs for it, but it's mostly just to get a little bit through versus like a whole stream of fish going back and forth.
I keep thinking about the ash wood that's used to make the baskets. Do you anticipate not having enough ash wood?
Yes, so we're currently thinking about, we as individual tribal members and various flag-making members that use ash are thinking about different ways to keep like basket making going, or other modes of containers and whatnot. I myself I do pottery, so that's another thing we are looking at. Instead of doing ash baskets, maybe pottery for some things, and then using other woods to sort of supplement that loss of ash. So there's a lot of discussion going on of what is going to be the next ash wood, and maybe other types of ash that isn't as affected. And it's more of a discussion for future generations what we're going to use for ash making, for basket making, and what that's going to look like going forward. It might not be ash baskets, it might be cedar baskets or something like that.
You talk about seeing in different ways, and this might be a little tangential, but I watched a documentary by and about a naturalist named Joe Hutto, who in Florida raised a flock of wild turkeys. And he was their mother for the period of time that it took them to become independent. And aside from, it was an interesting documentary, but the most interesting thing to me was because he was embedded with the turkeys, other animals that he would see only rarely would interact with the turkeys. And so he had a completely different relationship with them. And I guess I'm only thinking that maybe my view as a non-native person really restricts how I see animals as the other, and not as a part. So.
Yeah, I think there's a lot going on in terms of understanding that animals aren't just dumb, whatever. They're more intelligent than what we're giving them credit for. And I think that's being recognized more nowadays in Western science, with just understanding of animal brains and how they see themselves and all this stuff that is sort of catching up with the indigenous way of seeing that these are intelligent beings that, know how to live on the land, and we can learn from them, and we can get a lot out of understanding that animals are just, they're just animals, They're sort of equal to us in terms of how to survive. And yeah, I think it helps with understanding that, a lot of the stuff in nature isn't just built for us, it's built for everything. Everything's built for itself and all has equal and connecting parts. If you take one out, then the whole machine falls apart. And having that understanding helps with trying to figure out how to mitigate, climate change and disasters and stuff like that. Maybe we should, cut down all these trees or widen the rivers or, stuff like that.
I just want to thank you for coming today and acknowledge you individually, but so many tribal members have done so much to help to create that there could even be these two lenses in which we move forward. I appreciate that it's not, and the whole way in which that's happened is it's not just about the environment, it's not just about tribal rights, it's about everything. And so I appreciate you coming today and all the work that is happening. And it motivates me as a member of this congregation to really think about how do we be allies
Yeah.
together.
I think just, being there is the biggest step of being an ally, just listening and understanding and being able to ask questions that you're curious about and having a space where you can have them answered without feeling any sort of negativity towards. And it's just, understanding that we're all in this together, and there's no one that's more or less deserving of being treated equally. So just asking questions and just knowing this is the biggest step.
Here, here, thank you.
So Isaac, thank you so much for coming today. Just such a far-ranging talk, this whole 7th generation kind of concept, time framing, looking back 7 generations, looking forward 7 generations. So, any idea what this most curious object is that I hauled out of the Maliseet River while the guys were working on the river restoration project?
I think it's a train hub, like a hubcap, one of the wheels, like an older one. Just because it's cast iron, it looks huge. And, it could be.
So there's river rocks here on the altar this morning. Again, it came out of the Maliseet River. And that most curious object as well. And the stories behind industrial use of a river, recreational use, cultural uses. As an archaeologist, I'm always looking, I'm sure, in the river to see what's going on next to it, on the lands of our area. Of the backstory, we go back 200 years plus looking at history here, but there's so much more when we keep taking it back generation by generation. So thank you once again, Isaac. Thank you.
Thank you.
We extinguish the chalice today, but our venture goes on into the future as we look back, as we share our stories, and as we share our vision, and these conversations that we can have together in this place and during coffee hour. So if you have questions for Isaac that you didn't get to during service, please continue the conversation with Isaac and Judy.
We want to thank everybody for tuning in today. If you'd like to show your support, please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel if you're not already subscribed, and help us out by sharing this message by clicking the share button. If you'd like to make a monetary donation to the UU Church Houlton, there is a link to our online donations in the video description down below. And again, thank you so much and have a blessed day.